So you've decided you want to build a no-code app, but you have multiple app ideas. How do you know which one to pursue? Right now, this decision might feel like you are sort of taking a shot in the dark. And honestly, right now, you might be spending so much time even trying to figure out which idea to build that you feel like you're falling behind on pursuing the actual development itself. But the reality is, if you have multiple app ideas, the decision of which idea to pursue first should not just be based on how you feel or what you think would be the right app idea. You should really be making this decision strategically. And today, that's what we're going to do. In this video, we're going to talk through 3 specific factors you need to be considering when choosing which app idea to pursue. And not only that, with each of these 3 factors, we're going to be looking at them in 2 different ways. One from a pure problem and solution perspective, so this is going to be a little bit more tactical, and one from a personal perspective. So this is going to pull your own insights and experiences into play, and both of these things are equally important when you're choosing which idea to pursue. Now, make sure you stick around until the end, because once you have made this decision, and at the end of this video, you should have this decision made, I then want to guide you to an extended free training that is going to help you take the next steps with that app idea and actually bringing it to life so you can put it into users' hands. Hey, if you're new here, I'm Kristen over at Coaching No Code Apps. We help non-technical entrepreneurs build custom apps so they can start their app-based businesses or grow their existing businesses, all without coding. And if that's what you are doing, then subscribe to this channel below for new videos every single week. The first factor you should be considering when determining which app idea to pursue is the severity of the problem that your app will be built to solve. Now, remember, you are not building an app idea. You are building a solution, and that solution has to solve a very specific problem. Now, if you're comparing 2, 3, or more app ideas that you have, then I want you to look at the problem your app or your apps are going to solve and compare the severity of those problems. So one problem might be more so an irritation for someone or an inconvenience for someone, for the prospective user. Whereas another problem might be a lot more severe. Maybe the problem is impeding business growth, or maybe it is causing a business to lose money, right? So look at the severity of the problem that you're solving. What kinds of consequences does that problem have, or do people experience when they have that problem? What are the pain points? What are the frustrations? What are the losses involved? Compare the severity of the problem, and the more severe the problem is, then the more you want to hone in on or pinpoint that app idea. Because the more severe a problem is, the easier it will be for you to sell a solution to that problem. Now, remember, I mentioned that we are going to be looking at each of these 3 factors in 2 different ways. One is from that problem and solution perspective, and the other one is from a more personal perspective. So when you are looking at the severity of the problem, which is just problem and solution focus, then I want you to also consider what experience you have with that problem. What expertise do you bring into this? What is your existing knowledge? Do you deal with this problem? Do you deal with the pain points and the frustrations and the consequences? Because if you don't, then you are probably going to have a much harder time creating the right solution for that problem. And so if you're comparing app ideas, then whichever ones you have more firsthand experience with, that's going to be where you're going to want to focus your attention, because you're already going to be coming into this with a lot of insight and knowledge and experience on how different processes should happen, and even how to talk about your app to your prospective users and roll it out into your market. The second factor I want you to consider when choosing the right app idea is the current cost of solving the problem that your app will be created to solve. So we looked at problem severity, but now I want you to consider the cost of solving the problem currently. So this is going to involve you looking at existing alternatives to your own solution, or what will be your own solution. So think about the problem that your app is going to be solving, and think about all the ways people are currently solving that problem. These don't have to be with apps, but they could be. People might be currently solving the problem in manual ways, maybe using Post-it notes, maybe using whiteboards, maybe using spreadsheets, maybe using community groups. There are, depending on the app idea, right, there can be a million different ways that people are currently solving the problem. Maybe they're hiring employees to solve the problem. Maybe they are using existing software or apps to solve the problem. But I want you to figure out the cost that people are currently paying, or the price people are currently paying to solve that problem. The higher the cost, the more you're going to want to hone in on that app idea, because that means that there is a demand for solutions and that the problem is severe enough for people to pay potentially high amounts to solve it. So that's validation for you. And if your costs, or if your prospective users' costs are high, then that bodes well for the future of your app. On the flip side, from a more personal perspective, I want you to think about what you could do differently or better in terms of a solution. So if you look at all of these existing alternatives that people are currently paying for, well, how are you going to provide a solution that is different or better? Because you don't just want to copy the existing alternatives out there, right? You don't want to take an app that people are currently using and look at the high monthly subscription costs and think, well, I'm just going to copy that. No, you want to do something differently. You want to fill holes within existing products. So maybe there are current solutions, but for some users, there are still gaps or holes in that solution. So it could be better for them. Maybe you want to target a very specific segment of the total addressable market. So maybe there is an existing solution that serves a target market, but there is a segment of that target market that's still sort of underserved. Maybe it's a niche within a certain industry that is currently compromising with the industry standard solution. So I want you to think about what your app is going to do better or differently, or who else it's going to target if there's not some specific differentiator in terms of the product itself. So if people are currently paying a high cost for existing solutions, and you can create something that is going to solve the same problem, but in a different way, or maybe a little bit better, or maybe for a slightly different segment within the market, then focus in on that idea. The third factor I want you to consider when deciding on an app idea is the market size. Now, we don't have to go too terribly in depth on this. You can get really in the weeds. I don't need you to go and actually try to determine the exact market size. So no overcomplication here. We just want to make sure there is an audience and there is a target market for you. So if you have a solution for a problem that is very severe and people are currently paying for that solution, and ideally a high cost, then the bigger the market, then the more audience you have, right? The more prospects you have who could come on and use your app to solve that problem. Now, that's not to say you can't address smaller markets, because the saying, the riches are in the niches, and we talk a lot about specializing or niching down or getting very focused versus trying to go very broad. And that's true, but you have to make sure there is an actual market. So let's say you were building an app that was for local use. Maybe it is very location specific. Well, you want to make sure that there's an actual market that's sizable enough for you to address long-term and consistently, right? So you can niche down, but make sure the market is there. And then on the flip side, on the more personal side, do you have access to that market? Do you have existing access? If you have an app idea and you know there's a really big market for it, but you don't have any existing access points to that market, then you're going to struggle, or at least it's going to take you a longer time to release to that market, or it's going to cost you more money to create access points to that market. So that's not to say you can't do it, but if you have multiple app ideas and with one of them you have more access points, existing access points to the target market versus another, then I would go for the one where you have existing access points. And this is really just places where you already have access to prospective users. Because if you think forward to when you are going to be launching your app, well, I want you to launch your app in as seamless of a way as possible. I don't want you to have to go and spend a ton of money on paid ads for your very first launch with test users, for example, because you're going to be making the process more complicated than it really needs to be. For those first test users, you should really be able to tap into your existing network or your existing acquaintances or groups or contacts or coworkers or whatever it may be, and bring people on board very easily, by having conversations. It doesn't need to be anything scalable, right? This is kind of like boots on the ground work when we're building really early traction, but you want to have those existing access points there. Okay, so the 3 factors to consider when narrowing down your app idea are: 1, the severity of the problem. The more severe the problem, the more I want you to hone in on solving that problem. And likewise, what is your existing experience in solving that problem or in experiencing that problem yourself? Think about both of those in combination. Number 2, what is the current cost of solving that problem? So when you look at existing alternatives within your target market, what are people currently paying to solve the problem that you're trying to solve? And likewise, how can you solve that problem a little bit differently, a little bit better for a slightly different segment? And number 3, what's the market size? Don't overcomplicate this. Just make sure there is a market there. And also importantly, what is your existing access to that market? Do you have access points that are going to make your first launch easy and seamless versus having to complicate that early outreach and potentially spend a lot of money? If you have multiple no-code app ideas, then these factors will narrow it down for you so that you can strategically choose the right no-code app idea to pursue and not end up just taking a shot in the dark, and certainly not end up planning and figuring this out for so long that it inevitably just delays the actual development of your product in the first place. Now, as you move forward into that development, you need to make sure you are scoping the app correctly and creating a strategic roadmap so that you can build and launch the right features at the right times. You need to make sure you are choosing the right no-code tools and using them correctly, because you can have a tool, but if you don't know how to leverage it to build your product, then you're still going to struggle to release that product. So we have a free extended workshop over at coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop that will walk you through those things and help you take these next steps and actually get your app out into users' hands. So head to coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop to join in on that. And hey, if you found this video helpful, we would love for you to give it a like down below. It really helps us out in helping more people launch their no-code apps too. So give the video a like, subscribe for more videos just like this. We hope you found this helpful, and we'll see you in the next one.